The dreams dancing around your head became fragmented and faded until you couldn't remember a thing about them at all. You were growing more aware of the real world. I woke up on my own. Probably not. Alarm woke me up, or Cove was gently waking me. I probably would have asked Cove to make sure I woke up on time. You could feel Cove's hand on your shoulder, shaking it. As you became more aware of your surroundings, you could feel where the bed dipped from his other hand. You pouted and squeezed your eyes shut. Groggily, you struggled to keep your eyes half open. Probably this. You lifted your head an inch and turned in the direction of the warmth on your shoulder.
Morning.
Rubbing the sleepy seeds away, you tried to focus on him. His mouth was pulled in an amused smile, and you felt the bed shift when Cove removed his hand, standing back. You sat up fully with a big yawn, stretching your back, then your arms, and lastly your neck before accepting the day. Yep, that sounds about right. The blanket fell to the side while you swung your legs over the side of the bed. A part of it almost got caught on your foot, but you kicked it away. Cove put a hand over his mouth, but you still caught the way his shoulders shook. Shut up! He took a step back, giving you room to get up. Today would be your last day in Sunset Bird. The only thing you had planned was some family time in the old neighborhood. You figured you'd see where the day took you from there. Yawning again, you glanced over at your clothes. There was just one more day to live out of your bag. I don't have anything clean left, but oh well. Yeah, it's too early for conversation. I haven't had coffee, I haven't brushed my teeth, washed my face. I'm just gonna be like, what looks clean and not wrinkly? The next several minutes passed in comfortable silence while you internally debated between two shirts.
Alright, let's get things going. Our families are waiting.
Nodding, you and Cove swiftly finished getting ready in the small hotel room. As soon as you had your stuff together and were ready to go, you were off. During the ride there, you and Cove decided to visit his dad's house first this time. When you got dropped off, Cove eagerly hopped out into the street with his eyes locked on his father's condo. Your gaze fell on your boyfriend. He stood in the middle of the street where you grew up together while the summer sun made him shine. Though he was the brightest light in your eyes, no matter what. Aww. Oh. Interesting. Gives me the option to, eh? Well. Unfortunately, for Cove and myself, I'm still a big old coward, so it was a beautiful thing. You wouldn't give up a single second of your time with Cove. Meeting him there, you were looking forward to how today's chapter would unfold. Cove strode up to his old front door and casually flung it open without bothering to knock once again. You followed at his side as he poked his head in. You closed the door behind you both.
Hello?
You found Cliff and Kyra in the kitchen getting breakfast ready. Kyra was cutting an apple, while Cliff was watching a frying pan sizzle. Cove's parents waved from across the room, not straying from their tasks.
Good morning, you two.
Yeah, morning and hello to you. I hope you slept well.
Thanks.
Thanks for swinging by. You're more than welcome to join us for breakfast here if you haven't already eaten, of course. We haven't yet. Though even if we had, there's always room for more.
Kyra chuckled. She put down the knife she had in her hand so that all her attention could be on her son. You're still my giant growing baby boy.
Mom, please.
Kyra didn't pay Cove's whining any mind. Instead, she put a finger up to her lip as she thought, her eyes on you and then glimpsing towards a window.
What do you think?
I wonder, do you think your family's eaten yet, Molly? I'm not sure. Cove and I came over here first. Your eyes flicked over to the clock on their oven. Given the time, your moms may have eaten, or they could be having a slower morning. It was a coin toss either way.
Well, give them a call. They could come over.
Cove nodded, a sage expression on his face.
Making them breakfast is the least we could do after how much food I ate at their house growing up.
Right.
True, bud. Very true.
Alright. You took out your phone. Even though your moms both had cells for years, the house number was the one that you had memorized as a kid and the first entry on your contacts list. As the call connected, you tapped the speaker button. You figured it would be easier if everyone could hear what was going on. You heard a click and familiar static.
Hello.
Hello, Molly. It's nice to hear from you.
Hey Ma, good morning. I'm across the street right now, and Cove's family wanted me to invite everyone to breakfast. Do you want to come over?
That sounds delightful. Pamela and I can do that. Liz and Lee should be able to make it too. Would that be fine?
Cliff took a step forward and spoke loudly so that his voice would be picked up.
It definitely would be. The more the merrier.
Marvelous.
We may have gotten together for dinner last night, but there's no law that we can't do it again for breakfast today. Enjoy the company while you can, is what I think. Ma giggled, and you could hear some rustling over the line.
Thank you. I'll let them know and we'll be right over.
Cliff gave a thumbs up. Cove shook his head with amusement.
Dad just gave a thumbs up. I'm telling you since you can't see him over the phone.
Kyra snorted, and Ma's laughter rang out, filling the kitchen. Cliff switched the thumbs up hand to instead scratch the back of his head.
See you.
Well, it sounds like we'll see you soon. Mm-hmm. Goodbye for a little while.
You could feel her smile from her voice. Bye, Ma. You ended the call with a satisfying tap of the red button. Cliff's eyes wandered around the space.
We better get cooking.
Sounds good.
I can help.
Me too.
No way! Your guess. Kyra and I have got this.
She grinned. There was something playful in the twist of her lips.
Right.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Cliff. I've been in your spot before. There's no choice but to accept it. Cove sighed, but from the sparkle in his eyes, you could see that he was entertained.
Fine. We'll just hang out over here, I guess. Good.
Cove walked over to the living room and gestured at the couch. You both took a seat, getting a comfortable spot to wait for food and family. Cove tilted towards his parents with his chin, then shook his head with a gentle smile, silently asking if you could believe this. All you had was a silent shrug. Time passed, filled with light chatting. Cove kept a careful watch on his parents' culinary progress and teasingly kept a running commentary.
Oh, Dad added another pinch of salt. I wonder if that was a good idea.
Cliff had to raise his voice to project over to the living room. He sounded very amused.
It's funny that you of all people are commenting on my salt usage. We were both born and raised in salt water. Besides, I'm sure you remember back when you were about 12 and tried to make...
Cove flushed slightly, but his smile remained as bright as ever.
Do you really want to start talking about cookie mistakes, Dad? Because I remember a lot of things too. Like, what about that chowder that was supposed to be a pie?
Cove and his family were quite a show to listen to. You chimed in occasionally, but mostly you provided the laugh track. Sounds accurate. Eventually, there was a rhythmic knock on the door.
Oh,
That's them!
He said it loudly for his parents' benefit. You nodded and got up to greet your family. When you opened the door, surprisingly, there were no moms. Oh, hi, guys! Well, look at the new Three Musketeers. Terry stood in front with Miranda at his side. Derek waved from behind them.
Hey, buddies! We came to see you two before you left. The plan would have been to go over to Molly's house next if you weren't here. Luckily, you two aren't too hard to find.
What he said. And hi. Cove burst into happy laughter. His brows were high in surprise, not unlike how he looked after unwrapping a nice present.
Wow! Thanks for coming.
Hello! Kyra's voice carried through the house from the kitchen. Cliff likewise projected.
Great! The whole gang will be here.
You heard the sound of a cabinet open and shut. A pan clattered and the faucet turned on.
are we interrupting something?
Are we?
My parents, sister, and cousin are coming over for breakfast. They should be here in a few minutes.
Yep, but my dad always makes a ton of food anyway. It's no problem for you guys to join.
Cove waved off their concerns before pausing with a thoughtful hum.
The only real problem is, do we have enough places for all these people to sit?
He peered back into the house and started counting the dining room table, chairs, and bar stools.
5, 6...
Cliff interrupted when Cove began trying to use his fingers to connect the different chairs to different guests. I mean, I volunteer to sit on the floor, that's totally fine.
No worries.
Don't worry! Some people can squish together on the sofas. It'll be fine.
This really is gonna be a party?
Well, I'd be happy to accept the invitation.
Yeah.
You'd have to be crazy to skip out on this.
Thanks.
Thank you for making room.
We're really glad that you came.
Your three friends finally piled into the house. Before they had a chance to settle in, the doorbell rang. Only Miranda had sat down.
All right.
Now that has to be them.
People laughed as he walked back over to the door and opened it up. He was right this time. It was your parents, Liz and Lee, all crowded on the front steps. They squinted into the house and were surprised at just how many greetings were said. The sheer force of the chorus of hellos was impressive.
What?
How did they beat us here? How early did Molly call you? We're literally across the street! Terry snorted at your sister's confusion. He seemed quite pleased with himself.
We were a surprise. We called ourselves.
Cool.
Very cool. Cliff smirked as he adjusted the settings on the stovetop.
It's a little more crowded than expected, but we're making it work.
Cove led the final group to complete the picture inside, and they took the chance to greet you along with everyone else. When the excited energy buzzing around the table started to calm, you had a second to truly appreciate this view. The most important people in your life all together again. It still felt too good to be true to have everyone here. And then you noticed that Kyra stood back up. She clapped her hands once in a satisfying smack.
Any whoosies?
I hate to interrupt, but I thought you'd want to know that the food's done cooking. Cliff crossed the floor to place a pile of silverware on the table, and then he dropped stuff off on other surfaces around the rest of the living room. When he was done, he gestured towards the food.
Okay.
The plates are in the kitchen. Serve yourselves and sit wherever you'd like.
The guests happily formed a line, and the meal was steadily passed around. Before long, each person claimed a seat in the Holden living room area, some at the table, others on the kitchen island, and some situated at the couches. Conversations trickled across the various clusters of friends as everyone dug in. Cove finished his plate in record time with a pleased sigh. He put his fork down and surveyed the room.
This is really cool. Just how we're getting to do this kind of thing. I like this too, Cove. I hope we'll be able to make this happen again. Of course! There'll always be more reasons to get the gang back together in the future.
Yes, the two of you might even dare to celebrate your yearly anniversary, gasp, every year. The smirk on Liz's face grew only wider as your moms giggled at her teasing. Ma shook her head, chuckling softer now.
Josh. True.
Honestly, we just might. You've made a good point. It does come around every year. You should!
Seriously, you deserve a big celebration for your magical day.
The kids are right. You've got a lot of people who want to appreciate you. You've got to give them a chance.
It's true. I know I have a lot to thank you for. There were more nods of agreement around the room, and your moms took each other's hands for support. Neither were expecting so much encouragement.
We'll think about it. She'll think about it, and I'll tell Lonnie to stop thinking so hard if she doesn't agree. Pam?
Good.
Good job, Mom. Now with that settled, let us continue to enjoy this perfect gathering. Who else being here would make this extra perfect? Are you thinking about Shiloh? I'm curious. I'm curious where in-game Molly's thoughts are. Actually, you want to know who else being here would make this extra perfect? As amazing as this was, you couldn't help but think of absent faces. In seconds, everyone curiously turned their attention to you. Yeah, okay. So it could be Shiloh, Jeremy, Baxter. It does feel weird. Like, Baxter kind of came in later in our lives. Like, he was a good friend with Miranda and Terry. And I don't think Miranda and Terry ever met Shiloh. Or Jeremy. No, Miranda met Jeremy at her birthday party. I guess it's like a half and half thing. I don't think Derek met either. He only knew Jeremy. Oh my goodness. Weird. You know what? I'm gonna throw Shiloh a bone. Why not? Liz stared at you blankly for several seconds before covering her mouth with her hand and laughing hard. Lowering her hand, she shook her head.
No.
No! Liz, you're too real for that. This is a big crowd, Molly. I'm not so sure that he'd like that, and you know, Shiloh is a bit of an acquired taste. That's fair. Sighing, you thought about all the times you'd interacted the last few years. Shiloh was still excellent at dodging interactions he didn't want, but he always came back around when it suited him. Checks out. You were aware that he was in what sounded like a serious relationship with a girl he had met in high school. Okay. Is it JB or is it a different girl? Maybe one day you'd meet her whenever Shiloh felt like it. Cove's mouth wobbled nervously. He shrugged, unsure what to make of your suggestion at all. Those two men definitely never became close. Just be glad I didn't suggest Baxter, honey. Oh no, I can do all of them. I'm doing all of them. It would be cool if Jeremy was here too. A small chuckle escaped Cove before his lips curled into a bent smile. He shook his head slightly while he studied you in disbelief.
I guess.
You know he would hate this. But yeah, I wouldn't mind if Jeremy was actually here.
Snickering, your cheeks hurt from grinning so wide. You could easily imagine how vocally annoyed Jeremy would be sitting among all your friends and family. It was amazing that despite the twists and turns life threw in your direction, you still kept in touch with that angry little boy you met one summer a long time ago. I'm glad I ran after him that one day. Somehow the universe brought you both together again as teens, and since then you'd continued talking on and off for the past 5 years. You appreciated the occasions that you got to check in with him. Since becoming an adult, his personality had gone through a few more changes. Jeremy was definitely still downcast and dry, but he got back some of that fighting spirit he had as a kid. Smiling to yourself, you felt that things kinda came around full circle that way. His negative attitude aside, Jeremy did well for himself. He was going to graduate from a well-respected business university very soon. You were genuinely happy for him. Good job, Jeremy! And as much as he protested the very notion, you were pretty sure that Jeremy was going to end up going back home and helping his parents run their small hobby shop. I'm sure he's thrilled. The amusement on your face faltered the moment your eyes fell on Derek. His eyebrows were pinched together while he sat there silently confused. It's like, Jeremy? Derek, don't you remember Jeremy?
Huh?
Derek. Oh? I love him.
Not really, no. Should I?
Not really. We met him around the playground, I think. Many, many, many years ago.
Oh, wow. I don't remember him at all. He was mean. And loud.
And had a bowl cut hairstyle. Man, if you don't remember the bowl cut hairstyle, then there's no remembering him.
Yeah, that's still not ringing any bells. Sorry.
It's alright, that's probably for the best. Alright. I'm gonna throw my monochrome boy a bone too. And it is too bad Baxter is missing from this. Cove turned to you with a genuinely thoughtful look. He rubbed at his forearm while he composed his words.
It'd be kind of interesting to see what Baxter would be like now. I think I wouldn't mind seeing him again, though. It'd probably be awkward.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I just want to know.
Ooh.
Terry, yeah, you good?
Yeah, Baxter was that cool guy with the eyes, shirt, and the fancy rental car, right?
I liked him. He was pretty nice. Yes, he was iconic. It's too bad he had to mysteriously disappear and never be heard from again. But maybe that makes him even more of an icon.
Truth. And that's all I have to say.
There was a playfulness in Kyra's stare as she scanned the room. She slowly placed her index finger on her chin. Now that I think of it, there's something I haven't done in a while. Eyebrows were raised at Kyra's incomplete thought. She was wordlessly urged to continue. Kyra didn't hesitate. Look through all the photos Cliff has here. Wouldn't that be fun for all of us?
What? Mom, why would you say that? Practically all of those photos are of me.
Very cute.
And that's why. Embarrassing my baby boy is just one of the perks of being a mom. Much to Cove's dismay, his mom was thoroughly entertained at his outburst. She winked in your direction. Meanwhile, Cliff eagerly stood up with a wave of proud affection for his son and completely missed Kyra's teasing intent.
Oh,
I think that's a great idea. Anyone else interested in the pictures?
Yeah.
I am! Lee shot her hand up before Cliff could even take a full step. Terry and Miranda snuck each other a glance before nodding with matching grins. That sounds swell.
That's fantastic.
That would be lovely, Cliff.
Mom tried to hide her amusement behind her hand, but she couldn't stop the snicker that slipped out.
Oh boy.
Poor Cove, everyone loves to pick on you. I want to see them. It's been too long since I last saw little Cove. Mr. Holden met your gaze with a soft look that told you that he was thinking the same thing. I bet this'll be a goldmine of entertainment. Cove buried his face in his hands and sighed slowly. His shoulders deflated in defeat.
Fine, we can take a look. Everyone happy with picture time?
Yay!
Fun.
Yes! They both excitedly raised a fist in victory. Smaller cheers from your friends and family worked their way around the room, and even you bounced up to your feet excitedly. Poor Cove. Cliff flipped open his faded album of physical pictures. He held it up to his face. The corners of his eyes crinkled, and though the book covered much of his face, you were certain he was smiling fondly. But he didn't keep it to himself long, laying the family album on the dining table. You and the rest of the party gathered around to get a peek. Aww, stop! Beach bum! That's a great picture. The first picture on the first page was baby Cove in a cute little onesie. There were several coos and ahs from the group, and Cliff's eyes were shiny with tears as he sniffled.
He's grown so much.
Even as a baby, you look unimpressed. Oh gosh, I don't even know what to say. I'll tease. Even as a baby, you looked unimpressed. Sighing loudly, Cove crossed his arms. His pout grew worse, and it only put a wider grin on your own face. He was a perfect match to the younger self captured in ink on the page. My baby boy was a very quiet child.
I probably had a lot on my mind. That's never changed.
What was there to think about? Snack time versus nap time? Cove scowled. Meanwhile, you and Kyra couldn't help but crack up into fits of laughter. After breakfast and the photo showcase, everyone decided to stick around. What fun. Hanging around Mr. Holden's house turned into taking a walk around the neighborhood, and then for lunch you switched over to your mom's condo. It was a really good time, enjoying each other's company. But eventually, the sun began to set, and there was nothing else to delay your friends and family from going home. Inside your mom's house, the home you had been raised in, the group was taking their time saying their goodbyes. It was tough for you, your family, your friends. You knew what was weighing on the mood. It might be some time before you'd see one another again.
It was a pleasure having you all here, and you're welcome to come around again. Anytime.
Ma wrapped an arm around Mom with a light chuckle. Mom leaned her head gently into her wife, and they both beamed.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I know we're all adults with our own hectic lives, but we appreciate the time taken to visit.
Snorting, Liz crossed her arms. She leaned one hip out to the side while her lips curled teasingly. You make it sound like this was such a struggle. Some of these people still live here, and it was a vacation for everyone else.
Even so, it was very thoughtful, and I hope everyone has a safe trip home.
Kyra clapped a hand on Cliff's shoulder. He was puzzled as she leaned in so he could hear her. That means you too. It's dangerous crossing the street. Remember to look both ways.
Hey now. Yeah. Good luck with all the important grown-up things I'm sure you'll have to do when you're all out of here.
Definitely. I'll give updates next time something exciting happens, or something lame so I can vent about it. How nice. I'm glad Lee won't be forgetting the little people. Never ever. I'll keep in touch too.
Very nice.
You better.
Well, me and Randy aren't going far, so we can keep an eye on the town for the rest of you. Nothing will get past us.
Right. We'll make sure everything is okay. No need to worry at all.
Thanks.
That's kind of you.
Miranda and Terry gave each other pleased smiles, already committing to their self-appointed task. Derek scratched the back of his head, wearing a pensive look.
It's always sad when I have to leave this town. It happens too often. But at least there will be people looking out for Sunset Bird. That makes me feel better about it.
After a pause, Mr. Holden gave the younger folks a thumbs up.
Great.
You've got a lot to be proud of, and a lot to be looking forward to.
Well said, Cliff. I'm thankful that I've been privileged to witness the growth you've undergone over the years. You've each matured beautifully. Cove was touched by his parents' words and struggled to come up with something to follow.
Yeah, it's been good seeing everyone.
No one had taken a step yet, and you couldn't put this off any longer. It was time to say goodbye. Goodbye, I'll see you again, I'll miss you. This was fun, thanks for being here, I'm so glad we got to do this. Yeah, you know what? I'm so glad we got to do this. Me too.
Today was even better than I imagined. I don't know what we're gonna do without the kids around. I know, they keep us young.
We're not that old. Some of us still got it. Kyra definitely has it. She winked at Cliff teasingly, and he shook his head. Both of your moms laughed at that, and you caught several more cracks of smiles among your friends. Afterwards, there was more sniffling and hugs. A lot of hugs. Then people started trailing out into the street, seeing others off. Your friends and family got into their cars and left the neighborhood. By the time things had fully settled, you realized that the sun had set. Earlier, you and Cove decided on having a car pick you both up. Neither of you wanted to bother your parents after such a long day. It would be a little while longer before it would be here, though. It was the right choice, as both sets of parents shot you wary looks. The four seemed ready to call it a night. It didn't take either you or Cove very long to assure them that it was okay to head home and to go to bed. With one more round of goodnight and goodbyes, your families returned to the condos. Then the only people left on the street were you and Cove. Cove closed his eyes, humming happily while he waited for it to pass. He stared up at the sky. Cove's hands were in his pockets, and his shoulders were relaxed when he caught your attention with a tilt of his head.
So...
Can you guess what I'm thinking?
Well, at that moment you were in the neighborhood you grew up in together with some time to spare. You rolled your shoulders back and pretended to crack a few of your knuckles. An amused look fidgeted on Cove's face while he observed you silently. Could you perhaps be thinking that the fireflies are out now?
Right.
Do you want to go to the Poppy Hill before we leave?
I was hoping you'd ask. Always. We can't not visit this place and not go to the Poppy Hill. There was an eager bounce in your step as you and Cove crossed over towards the hill behind your mom's house. Side by side, you stared out at the view in awe. Ooh, fireflies! Yay! As you imagined, the hill was dotted with the glowing firefly light. It perfectly reflected the memories of childhood held closely in your mind. Cove sighed contentedly, seeing them across the hill, weaving in around the blades of grass and the stars above. Cove cocked his head to the side before his expression twisted playfully when he met your eye. You were about to prod him about what was on his mind when he took off running.
I bet I'll catch one first!
Oh, it's on! Kicking up a bit of dirt and leaves, you bolted in the opposite direction after a few fireflies that captured your attention. The first one that flitted into your range, you dove for it.
Did you get one?
It escaped between your fingers, but that didn't dim a second of your fun. You shook your head, trying to find your next target. The next one. I can feel it.
Unless you're feeling my future victory.
Out of the corner of your eye, you watch Cove get spun nearly around, following one that was staying just out of reach. Chuckling, you crouched down low, searching the air. The pursuit for fireflies continued until a handful had been caught. Cove crossed over to you with a bright grin that could rival every twinkling bug and star around you. Cupped between both his hands, Cove carefully held a firefly. The corners of his mouth twisted before a few giggles escaped him, and you knew that feeling well. The way the firefly would buzz around, tickling the palms of your hands. Cove's eyelids fluttered open, meeting yours. He watched you with a complicated mix of emotions, heavy with the weight of 15 years of history, of memories.
It's really a relief that I got to see the fireflies. This trip wouldn't have felt complete without it.
Yeah, I think you're right. You spotted another firefly lowering to your eye level before looping up to the top of Cove's head. It landed right on his hair, and you smirked.
What?
You have a very tiny firefly hat.
I do?
Before you could answer, the firefly took off and disappeared into the night. You gave it a tiny wave goodbye. Well, that didn't last very long.
That's too bad. I'll remember them as my tiny hat forever.
Me too. Taking a deep breath, cold? Cold! Cove held your eye. I think I combined Cove and held. He appeared to be conflicted about what he wanted to say next, and you waited for him to make his choice. He's got his own dialogue box. He's like, which one seems right in this moment?
It's so strange not to live here anymore. Most of my life, neither of us were ever really away from Sunset Bird. Well, unless one of us went on a trip somewhere. Or when both our families took trips together. Remember that?
He chuckled, losing himself to fond reminiscing. You couldn't help but match his grin. I liked that road trip one a lot. Though I don't think we all could squish into that RV again. We're way too big. Laughing, Cove shook his head. His brow creased the longer he sat with the thoughts spinning in his brain.
Those visits back then with my mom. I remember what a big deal they felt like then. To be away from here without anyone else coming for a whole few weeks. Oh, how little I knew.
What did you used to tell your mom about me when you were on those trips to see her? Well, aren't you fishing for information, girl? We were so innocent then. Sighing, Cove slowly shook his head. You offered him a small, reassuring smile.
We were. And now we're just adults somehow.
After that, Cove became quiet, simply gazing into your face. The way the lights around sparkled in his eyes reminded you of moonlight reflecting off the waves in the ocean. There was a depth to it that you could hardly grasp. A part of you felt compelled to speak, to do something, but you were entrenched. Cove held you completely in place as much as the firefly. Seconds ticked by, and you could visibly see tension building up inside your partner. There was a tremble in his stance, creases in his face, and a darkening red color appearing over the cheeks.
Guys, are we getting a proposal? Guys.
He breathed in slowly through his nose, squaring up his shoulders as he did.
Okay.
And then he released the firefly back into the vast night. It flew up around him before darting away into the night, but your gaze was fixated on him. He stood taller than before.
Sometimes... It's hard for me to just say things. I don't know what happened. When I was a kid, anything I thought of would come right out, even if I probably should have kept it to myself.
I'm always like this.
Cove, it's okay.
Now all the stuff in my head feels mixed up, and I can't force myself to make the words. Especially when it comes to you.
Cove's head tilted slightly, and he eased some of the stiffness in the way he carried himself.
It's really frustrating, huh? I think so. Nobody else has ever affected me the way you do, and you're the last person I want to have trouble talking to. But it's worth it. Just... being able to feel the way I do for you, and having you feel the same about me makes it all better. And I want to thank you for letting me express myself, however long it takes, and however it ends up coming out.
He chuckled softly, and your mouth curved into a smile.
Hey,
Molly?
Yeah? Cove's hand sheepishly got tucked away into his pockets, and he shifted his chest to the side. It made him seem much smaller than his usually massive 6'4" presence. There is a foot, almost... Oh, there's almost a 1.5 foot difference between you and me. Massive! Wanna play Hangman? What? You just casually have a notebook on hand, or what? I'm suspicious about this Hangman game, but go on.
Wanna play Hangman?
Yeah, huh? Hangman? Oh, I can't wait to see what you've got to say this time. Yeah, the first one was like, you are cute, which like took my breath away. The second one, I think, was like, it'll be okay, or something like that. Gosh. How can we do that here? I mean, this was my initial reaction of just like, huh? So I guess I'm going with the huh?
well...
I've got this notebook pad from the hotel we can use. It'll work. And I thought that it'd, you know, be nice to do after everything.
Okay, but you set up this whole thing to Hangman with, I have trouble expressing my thoughts. Thank you for giving me the time to express what I need to express. And then like, do you want to play Hangman? What are you gonna tell me in this thing? Oh, okay then. We can play. But you couldn't help noting how he had to plan this game ahead of time. Yes, exactly. He already brought supplies for it. The suggestion wasn't an impromptu game for old time's sake. You watched your partner intently. He, however, didn't notice. Cove, what are you up to? Cove had removed his eyes from you for the first time in a great while as he patted around his pants to find what he was looking for. Soon he shakily pulled out the aforementioned notepad and a pencil along with it, the pencil almost slipping through his fingers. He's so nervous. He made a fumbling catch with his other hand to keep it from falling to the ground. Cove's eyes closed with a sigh as he flipped open the book. He lifted it up high, partially obscuring his face behind the covers. Perhaps to make up for how weak the grip was before, Cove grasped the sides of the papers tightly. So much so the notebook bent inward. The only sounds you could hear were Cove's controlled deep breaths in and out, and the rustling noise of the paper in response to that. He looked so nervous! Cove then pried one hand off in order to begin sketching out the game board, though he kept it carefully close to himself. You couldn't get a peek. Your stomach began to twist as you stood there waiting. This really wasn't an average game. I swear, if it's like a 4-letter phrase, and the last word is like two letters. When Cove's writing hand stopped moving, so did the rest of him. There was a complete pause, but only for a moment. You barely registered the hesitation before he flipped the book around for you to see.
That's...
You can guess now.
That was all he said about it. Your eyes scanned over the page. 4 words. 4 letters. 3 letters. 5 and 2! I don't even need to guess letters. I know what he's asking. With Hangman on Poppy Hill with the fireflies stop. That is the most romantic thing ever. You opened your mouth and picked a letter. I did I? Hold on, I just want to see. Okay, there's the whole thing in its glory. What shall I begin with? Let's start with a vowel. How about an I? You glance at Cove. He didn't react to your correct guess. How about an O? Cove still remained stoic. You? You could tell at this point that this game would need to be over before he gave any hints on what he was feeling. An A. A Y? And an E. I can't believe this. Alright, let's spell it out all together now. W. Give me some L's. Give me an M. Oh, last letter! R! I have got the biggest grin on my face. And there it was. The answer and the question, will you marry me? What happens if you lose this game? I'm so morbidly curious. What happens? He's just like, eh. Cove. He may not have said it aloud, but you had gotten the message clearer than if he had shouted it from the rooftops, and Cove knew it. He let the notepad drop to the ground in front of you. You just began to bawl. Yeah, I mean, when it first happened, my hand just went straight to my mouth, like, ugh. Cove's legs shook despite walking straight. His entire body had gone rigid. He winced while trying to force his joints to actually move. Your feet remained locked in place, churning in your own sea of emotions, giving Cove the time he needed. Ultimately, Cove gracelessly dropped down onto both of his knees with a muted thud. His head was hung low in embarrassment as he clung onto your dress to stop from falling over entirely. Cove mumbled what you thought was an apology, though how he carried himself meant it was directed at the ground. You still couldn't move from that spot. Keeping a tight grip, he was able to awkwardly shift a leg lower so that he was being propped up on just one knee. There was a pause. And then he looked up at you with eyes as blue and wide as the sea and just as wet. He released your clothes to instead put his hands over his heart. Oh my goodness. I can't believe this is happening.
Molly.
In a small, fragile voice, he spoke.
I love you.
You mean so much to me. I don't even know what life would be without you.
Aww. Tears fell heavily, and the words dropped out as painfully.
I'm sorry. Have I ever been able to handle a major romantic moment in our relationship well?
Who do you think you're talking to?
You don't have to answer that.
He laughed breathily. It was almost more of a wheeze.
I've never made things easy, especially when growing up. Life was so hard for me, and so I made things harder for everybody else. But you were always so good to me, no matter what.
He continued to sniffle as he made a few false continuations of unintelligible stammering. Eventually, Cove found what he wanted to say next.
Thank you for being my girlfriend. Thank you for defending me from Jeremy.
Aw, of course.
Thank you for all the gifts when I had to go away to my mom's house. Thank you for being there for me when I ran away from home. Thank you for putting up with me when I'd panic about stuff outside of my control.
Aww. Almost sounds like vows, man. Cove's eyelids squeezed shut in an attempt to stop himself from rambling further. You had to stop yourself from interrupting. You were so touched already, but wanted him to finish. I would just be like, ugh. Cove's outpouring of gratitude accumulated in a final piece of appreciation.
Thanks for waiting for me.
Aww.
And thank you for being such a patient person. I know I kept you waiting so long. But I pick you, and you pick me. That's the way it's been ever since we've known each other. I hope it'll stay that way forever.
He took in a slow, controlled breath, and then, without stuttering or stopping, said the words out loud.
Will you marry me?
No! Of course, finally! Yes! Cove collapsed forward, catching himself with his hands before landing face first into the grass. These goopers! The poppies around his face fluttered from his grand sigh of relief. Did you think there was a world where I said no?
Oh my god. Thank you.
Aww. Look at this guy. Eyes filled with fresh tears, he lifted his head back up to smile at you with all the love in the world.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know that's all I've been saying this whole time, I'm sorry, but just thank you for being here and for being the one I get to be with.
Somehow all you could think was that it was him. Cove Holden, the man you loved, and now the person you were going to marry. No, thank you for everything. Then... Yep, down in the grass and smooch. You couldn't hold back any longer. You launched yourself at him and knocked Cove over on impact. Hiya! He laid flat on his back now. His eyes were wide, but swiftly pulled you against him, as close as he could get, desperate to feel you. You leaned forward and kissed your fiancé. Such a great novel thing when that happens. No longer boyfriend, but fiancé. He kissed you back lovingly, and you could feel the smile on his face. The place where you met, where you grew, where you fell in love, was now the place where your shared life together truly began. This was the perfect spot. You picked the perfect spot. Your eyes drifted close to let yourself experience it, to anchor yourself in this moment and hold on for as long as possible. You, the both of you, never wanted to let go. You were certain of it. The rest of your days would be spent side by side. It was all you'd hoped for. When the swirling excitement of your new engagement relaxed back into the more familiar style of gentle comfort your relationship brought, Cove stood up. He lifted you along with him.
Oh, and, I do have a ring too if you want that. It's just, you know, sentimentality. The hangman game felt better to me.
Yep. Cove chuckled bashfully, picking a stray strand of grass off his pants. You were thrilled by the turn of events that unfolded here. Your dream had been for Cove to propose, and he never disappointed you. Never once. Never, ever disappoints. Suddenly, Cove's now wide eyes snapped to yours.
How are we gonna tell people? We're leaving early in the morning and it's really late now. Should we try talking before we go?
The two of you put your heads together to come to some kind of decision for this predicament.
Maybe.
We could try calling your mom's house phone? If they hear that, it'd mean they haven't really gone to bed yet. If they don't, they probably won't even know it rang. Calling their cell phones might wake them up. And I could do the same for Dad's house.
Yeah, that could work. In sync, you and Cove dug out your cells and began to call the respective homes of your families. Cove stepped to the side as his father presumably picked up. You couldn't pay attention to his words for long as Mom answered your call next.
Hello.
Wave Rider residence, how can I help you?
Hi, Mom, it's me. I wanted to see if you were awake without bothering you if you'd gone to bed.
Yeah? Who raised such a thoughtful person? I'm impressed.
She chuckled at her own comment while getting quieter. You could tell she was pulling her face away from the receiver.
Lonnie, Molly is on the phone.
When she spoke again, it came in loud and clear.
She's coming on over.
Oh,
Ugh.
You twisted your head to the side after hearing Cove's exclamation and saw him tap on his screen to switch things to speaker mode.
Say hi, Dad and Mom. Molly is here, and so are her mom, sort of. They're on the phone, too.
What a wait. I like that we're literally like 10 steps away from both houses. We're like, we'll just do a conference call right here on the hill, it's fine. You quickly followed Cove's move and let your moms be on speaker.
Hey, Wave Rider family. Good evening, ladies. Hello, it's nice to hear from you. Agreed, even though it's unexpected. What's happening, kiddos? Well, the thing is... Wait, I'm gonna call Liz. Pam, get your phone. You can call Lee. What? You don't have to do that. I want to, sweetie. This is news they're going to enjoy hearing, isn't it? I'm certain they won't mind. I mean...
I like that everyone
All right.
basically already knows. They all already know. They're just like, hey, everybody should be here for the big announcement.
Hey, in that case, Kyra and I could call your friends. I got their numbers. Seriously? Of course. They've had to call me plenty of times to try reaching you whenever you misplaced your phone or forgot to charge it. Dad...
Yeah, I'm just like, Your parents got to work, leaving the old landlines on while they used their cells to call Lee, Liz, Miranda, and Terry's apartment, and Derek, respectively. Every call went through, and soon your whole main group was on the line, and they were expecting answers. There was no putting it off. I have an announcement to make. How do we just say it together? I don't want to put him on the spot. I have an announcement. I am intending to take Cove James Holden's hand in matrimony. Cove proposed to me and I accepted. Cove nodded with a serious expression.
Right.
Yes, that is what's happening.
I'm going to marry Molly.
Cove reached over to take your hand as a physical sign of your union, even though no one could see it. It made him feel better. The hill filled with cheers of congratulations. You heard Terry's distinctive whoop, and your mom started to joyfully whisper to each other away from the receiver. Lee squealed and Kyra cooed. There was no confusion or need for pause. Everyone in your life was immediately on board with your plans. Cove turned his head and beamed at you, excitement in his smile. It was coupled with a fond squeeze to your hand. You grinned back at him.
I'm so glad.
I'm so proud of you, Cove. The two of you are going to be happy. I'm sure of it. Dad.
Cove sniffled, eyes wide and emotional.
Yeah, I will be. Both of us will be.
Kyra spoke up gently.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so wonderful to my baby. I'm lucky and grateful that you're going to be a part of my life forever.
Well put, Kyra. Molly is a keeper for sure.
Oh, guys. Your family couldn't stay quiet for long and began to chime in.
I can't believe how grown up you are, but I couldn't be happier with how it all happened. Congratulations, Molly. You are one of the smartest cookies there are. You're making an amazing life for yourself.
Seriously?
This is totally amazing! You're seriously getting married. It's like we're real adults and all that. Yeah, it'd almost be hard to believe that my baby sister is marrying a person. You know, if Cove wasn't such an obvious choice as a husband for you.
Thanks. Her tone turned abnormally gentle.
You're doing good.
Thanks for the positive rating.
You're welcome.
Lee giggled, and your moms had some chuckles. Cove stood awkwardly, not entirely sure if he or Liz was being laughed at. Your three friends had stayed silent. You believed that they were intentionally giving your families a chance to have a moment. But once they said their pieces, it didn't take long for your friends to jump into the conversation excitedly.
Congratulations on the engagement. It's crazy how we're really at this point of our lives. Some days it feels like high school was yesterday.
So great.
You both are definitely Sunset Bird's best couple.
Terry added on eagerly.
You are the aspiration. I'm stoked that you're going to be official. This is a big step, but I'd say you've more than earned it with everything you've been through over the years. You both deserve to be with each other for the rest of your lives.
Cove had appeared weepy before, but this sealed it. He cried. Everyone's words had built up and coalesced into Cove shedding the happiest tears you'd seen.
Thank you.
These were people you cared dearly about, and they were so happy from your engagement. It was heartwarming.
Good luck, kiddos. You've got a journey ahead of you.
Cliff agreed with a chuckle.
They've known each other for 15 years already and still haven't gotten sick of each other yet. How hard could making it work for the rest of their lives be?
It's no trouble.
For the two of them, not difficult at all.
Cove didn't run away even once during this big life change. Thank you so much, everyone. It means a lot that you're all here for us. Cove nodded beside you with a watery smile.
Of course. What else is family for?
But ultimately, the night was growing late and the many phone calls all had to come to an end. After goodbyes were shared, you were left with just one another again in the quiet space of Poppy Hill.
I think that was nice.
Me too.
Well,
We have to go to the hotel now, huh?
I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Oh,
Cove awkwardly fidgeted with his hands at his sides, like he wasn't sure what he wanted to do with them. You bit the inside of your cheek because you weren't sure what to do with yourself either.
was there anything else that you wanted to do while we're still here?
I don't know. I know that I don't want to leave yet. The corner of Cove's mouth pulled into a frown. He watched your shoulders slump with a sympathetic
don't worry
look.
about it.
It's okay, Molly. We've done a pretty good job bookending things, I think. We've enjoyed this trip the best we could, right?
He rotated his arm awkwardly, nervously waiting for your response. You sighed. Well, you do have a point. But it's still sad that we're leaving. I don't want today to end ever.
We can always come back. Whenever you want to, we can try to make it work. I promise.
Cove stood tall and studied you as his reassuring words sank in. You knew he meant every word, and you believed him wholeheartedly. Okay. With Cove right there along with you, you made your way down the hill. With the same stars above trailing the way your last night in Sunset Bird was closing out. You were lost deep within a dream, adrift in the current of your unconscious mind. Cove was with you, even there, his presence strong as your mind flitted from scene to scene, the logic of the conscious world melting around you. Something jolted you from your slumber, the visions you'd constructed slipping away even as you scrambled to catch them. It had been a good dream. You opened your eyes to an unlit, familiar ceiling. The darkness permeated the room so thoroughly that you were sure it was still the middle of the night. As your eyes adjusted to what little light there was to catch on to, a smiling face cozied itself right above you. There he was.
Molly!
Hi.
Good morning, Molly.
The grin was bright enough to make it seem like maybe the sun had risen after all. It's my dream come true. Please stop being a morning person. Oh, it's my dream come true. Naturally, you weren't surprised to see him, but that didn't stop you from enjoying it every time. His expression softened at your voice, the tender affection in his gaze obvious despite the dim space. You pulled the covers over your head. Good night. Mwah. Propping yourself up on your elbows, you leaned in towards him. Cove read the intent in your movement and bent down, meeting you halfway in a kiss.
Would you prefer me to wake you up by tapping on the window?
Maybe. Cove simply smirked, amused by his own wit.
Come on.
I mean, you really should have expected this was gonna happen.
Fine. Shame on me, 'cause you got me more than once.
Way more than once.
I'm guessing you woke me up for some reason. Are you ever gonna let me know?
Well, this is our last day here. Everyone might still be asleep, but if we get up now, we can at least see the neighborhood. Do you want to?
And the reason that you didn't tell me this plan last night is... Here we go, yet again. With you? Definitely.
All right.
Great!
Then he held out one of those hands to help you get up to. Lift me! Cove's grip was strong as his fingers closed around yours. He pulled, tugging you up with ease. Before you could head out, you and Cove both needed to get dressed. You did so quietly. The strangeness of the hour meant that your body seemed less coordinated than usual, each article of clothing a new puzzle, but you managed it. The two of you were eventually ready to head out into the wide world. Dawn still hadn't broken when you left the hotel, yet it was easy enough to get a ride down into Sunset Bird. The journey was peaceful. You might have expected sleep to attempt to claim you once again, with the sky still so dark, but Cove's excited energy was infectious. Morning was finally starting to come over Sunset Bird as you arrived, almost like the sun itself wanted to be there to welcome you. Cove turned towards you, his eyes sparkling with anticipation.
One more summer beach trip?
You laughed, nodding to reassure him, as if there was any alternative now that you were here and he was looking at you so eagerly. Yeah, one more. You could have taken your time getting there, dawdling under the morning sun, or you could have taken the short walk at a regular pace. And both of those would have been just right for some other occasion. But this time, without either of you saying a word, you and Cove set off sprinting. The two of you tore gleefully down the street towards the beach, as excited and as ungainly as the kids you'd once been. You were laughing with joy and at the absurdity of it all, being here at the break of dawn with the boy who you'd once discovered on the nearby hill who never completely grew up. As it was still early, you did your best to keep the noise down. To the side, you saw Cove covering his mouth to stifle his own giggles, similarly aware of the people sleeping in the condos around you. You thought of what the mean old not-grandparents would have said if they could see you now. All you could do was continue running and stumbling down towards the beach, away from the residences and their sleeping occupants. Hey, we made it to the beach. It was only a few minutes before you arrived at the expansive ocean shore. Cove kicked off his shoes and strode right into the water, not stopping until his feet were entirely submerged and the waves tickled his ankles. Yep. After slipping your shoes off, you let the sea flow over you. It was cool against your skin, but not as cold as when the wave pulled back and your wet feet were exposed to the air again. The two of you stood there, watching as the sun continued its ascent over the horizon. Silence fell between you until finally dawn had fully broken. Even then, Cove spoke in a whisper.
Wow.
I can't believe it's over.
How are are we already at this point? It all went by way too fast. Boy, you're really sounding like a kid again. I can't either. A ghost of a smile crept over Cove's face, like the sun peeking out between clouds on an overcast day. Oh, hello. Cove reached out and enveloped your hand in his, pressing your palms together tightly. The silence returned, just for a second.
I'm glad we came this morning, and that we came on this whole visit back.
I'm so glad.
But, more than anything, I'm glad for ending up in this town in the first place, where I got to grow up with a really nice neighbor. I wouldn't have wanted any other life.
Thank you. Cove looked over at you out of the corner of his eyes, not turning his face away from the sea. His expression was full of affection, from the gentle curve of his smile to his clear, contented brow. It was a stark contrast to the tears rolling down his cheeks. You counted yourself lucky. Even though you were leaving now, this place had gifted you with so much that you'd carry with you wherever life might take you. The memories you'd made, the lessons you'd learned, the people you'd built relationships with. You'd keep those pieces of your life in Sunset Bird forever. You stood with Cove, silently watching as bright rays swept away the last of the night's shadows until the day truly arrived. Your spirits were high as the sun rose ever higher in the sky. The two of you had found yourselves meandering back to the neighborhood street on sandy feet, strolling down the path just as you'd done thousands of times before. This was where it all started. You were compelled to look at the exact spot you'd first encountered Mr. Holden, sitting dejected on the curb. He wasn't like that anymore. Still, you couldn't forget the day it began, just as you couldn't believe what an adventure it led to. Things had never been the same since that moment, and you couldn't be happier for it. Your mental lingering on that meeting had turned physical, causing you to stop in your tracks. It was only when you heard Cove's voice calling your name that you remembered when you were and realized what you'd done. And what a present it was. A shining sun, a clear blue sky, and Cove James Holden by your side, all the most natural things in the world. So, what's the next step? Is that a pun thing? Next step, heh. You watch Cove expectantly, waiting for him to guide you forward from here. There was a crinkle around his eyes as he laughed.
It's up to you now.
Ooh, exciting. You began to think where the two of you should visit next. Cove perked up, energized by your enthusiasm.
I'm listening.
No matter how much time might pass, there were some things that you could count on to be constant. Cove, your family, his family, and all your other loved ones being there for you when you needed it was one of those things since the beginning and for always. Knowing they were there and you would never be truly alone made the future look all that much brighter. Somewhere private to make out? I'm hungry. You want to grab something to eat? Your early morning escapade had stirred up your appetite, and you were positive it would have for Cove as well. Cove nodded, his gaze shifting from you to roam across the little place that you'd both called home.
There's a lot that's still out there in the world. A lot of different ways things could go in the future. But for this, I think that'd be the perfect choice.
You beamed, his approval of your suggestion lifting your spirits ever higher. Your days growing up in Sunset Bird had been so wonderful. Even the prospect of leaving again made your chest ache, yet you weren't going to let that stop you. It would be hard, but you knew that it would still be there, waiting whenever you wanted to return. Facing Cove, who'd been by your side through it all, you knew that one day you'd look back on these moments now just as you fondly reminisced about your childhood growing up here. Each happy moment you experienced became only a memory of what used to be. But that was what life was, and it was okay. As it was from the beginning, and continuing that way for always. Life took another step forward. Thank you for beginning a life here. Now leaving Sunset Bird. Aw. You can come back again. Always. That's so sweet. The end. This ending song sounds like the end of an anime. Also, hello again! Thank you so much for getting the COVE wedding DLC. Because you're engaged to COVE in this playthrough, you can choose to continue your story into the wedding planning events if you'd like. Is that something I want to do, guys? I gotta think about that. Yes. And you can always make a save here and come back if you want to return to the option later on. Alright. I will follow this advice. Next time? Wedding DLC time! I just want to make sure that this... Okay, so it just goes right into the DLC. Okay. I wanted to make sure, because I'm like, I don't want it to be like, here's a tiny little recap of like what ended up in the summer and stuff, and then it gets into the DLC. So we're good. That was the best proposal. It had like everything. Ah, so cute. I can't wait to plan my wedding, guys. You're all invited next week. We're planning a wedding. Hopefully I'll see you then.